Let's talk about Montblanc, because for the past 100 years, this brand has been the go-to pen for a lot of CEOs and heads of state, and you can always tell a pen is a Montblanc by the little piece of white on top of every Montblanc cap. And of course I'm referring to the six-pointed star, which represents the peak of Montblanc mountain. But for a lot of us normal people, we just want Montblanc pens because they are a bit of a status symbol, and for a lot of other people, they are a grail pen that you always strive to achieve to add to your collection. So I was really happy when my sister gave me my Montblanc for my birthday. Unfortunately, there are a lot of luxury companies out there like Montblanc which produce things other than pens and use their perceived status to sell a lot of their products, but unfortunately have let their quality slip over the years. Thankfully, over the course of using my Montblanc for the past few months, I could happily say that even though that they have been producing these pens for well over 100 years, their quality is still up there. Ignoring the pen for a minute, I just want to say how nice the presentation is for Montblanc. They obviously spend a lot of time in choosing how to present their products, and even just some of the small things are really nicely done. For example, the boxes are just beautiful, and even the instruction manuals are just beautifully printed, really nice photos, and really good paper. The box is probably one of the nicest boxes I've ever seen from a fountain pen. It's this really nice black texture with a very subtle pattern on it with the Montblanc logo, and it is just a very beautiful and elegant box. And upon opening the box, you're greeted with the Montblanc logo, and then on the bottom, sitting in its little slit, is the Montblanc pen. And even when it sits in the box, you can tell that this is a really nice pen. Even with a little bit of the clip sticking out, with a little bit of the band, you can just look at it and tell this is a very nice pen. And let's finally talk about the pen. This pen here is the Montblanc 146 Legrand in platinum trim, and you did hear me right, this is platinum, not silver. So Montblanc's flagship pen is the 149, so this is the baby brother of the 149, the 146. And for once, the numbers in a fountain pen name actually mean something. So in Montblanc's lineup, the 1 means that it is the top tier of pen, the 4 indicates that it is a piston filler fountain pen, and the 6 indicates the nib size, so this is a number 6 size nib, hence it being the 146. And we'll get into the nib later on, but first of all, I just want to talk about the aesthetics of this pen, because this is a very beautiful pen. It may be a traditional cigar-shaped pen, but this has, of course, the platinum trim, and the platinum trim just makes this pen pop. Even from a distance, I've had people say that this is a very cool-looking pen, and I'm talking about people that aren't into fountain pens at all. And when you pull out this pen to sign a simple document, which I do every now and then, I've had people tell me that this pen is pretty awesome. And when you pull off the cap and people see that it is a fountain pen, it just makes it even cooler. So let's take a closer look at the aesthetics, starting with the cap. So if you look at the cap, you can see on the top that there is the Montblanc logo, and that's going to be pretty standard for every Montblanc pen nowadays. The Montblanc logo is a 6-pointed star, which represents the peak of Montblanc mountain, and it is a very subtle way of showing people that this is a Montblanc. People that don't know that this pen is a Montblanc will be, dazzled by the whole trim, but people that know that this is a Montblanc will know. And when you go and write and post the pen is going to have the cap facing upwards, and people will know that this is a Montblanc pen. If you look at the top band on the cap, you can see that there is, in very small font, the pen's serial number, and Montblanc do this just to verify that this is a genuine Montblanc fountain pen, because a lot of these pens are faked due to their status and how much they actually cost. Looking further down on the lower rings, you can see Montblanc Meisterstück and Pix engraved on the center band. And the cool thing is Montblanc engrave a crosshatch pattern in Montblanc and Meisterstück, which obviously is going to be really hard to forge. Unscrewing the cap will take exactly 1.5 turns, and it will reveal the ink window. And the ink window on newer Montblanc pens is comprised of very thin, clear slits in the black resin. And for most pens that use this very thin slit design, it doesn't really work because you can't really see into the ink chamber and see how much ink is in it. But for the Montblanc pen, it actually works really well. You do have to hold it up to light, but but it gives you a really nice indication of not so much how much ink is in the pen, but it gives you an indication if the pen is full or empty. At the very bottom of the pen, you can see a final platinum coated ring, and here will be your piston mechanism, and it works like every other piston mechanism. You turn the piston mechanism anti-clockwise and it will lower the plunger, and you turn it clockwise and it will pull up the plunger, creating a vacuum which will suck ink up into the barrel. But this mechanism is one of the nicest mechanisms that I've used. Unlike TWSBI pens or maybe other Wingsung pens that I've used, there is a little bit of play in the mechanism and it might be a little bit hard to start turning. This mechanism is probably one of the best ones I have used. It is so smooth to use, there's no play in it, it is really nice. I'll also note that the ink capacity of this pen is 1.5 mils, and you're going to need that 1.5 mils because this pen is very wet and it will blow through the whole ink supply if you're using this pen on a regular basis. The pen's body is made of what Montblanc call its precious resin, and they only stick precious in it to charge you a little bit more money, but its precious resin is probably the same stuff that they make Ray-Ban Wayfarers out of, because it's very similar. It feels very similar, it has very similar anti-slip properties to it, it feels very nice in the hand, it is a very hard material, and as well as that, if you stick it in front of a bright light source, it will glow a dark red. But I'm not trying to knock it or anything, because Ray-Bans are a very nice type of sunglasses. I have a whole bunch of them and they're very nice, and this Montblanc is just like them. Very nice to work with and it just feels very high in quality. And briefly touching on the ergonomics of the fountain pen, I do have a more in-depth video that I am going to make, but just a quick overview of the ergonomics, I have to say this pen is really nice to use. Overall, I can say they have done a brilliant job in making this pen very comfortable to use. I use this pen unposted because I don't want to create scratch marks where I post the pen. And in general, this pen doesn't post amazingly. If you just try to pop on the back cap, it just doesn't stay posted, and if you push it too far, I think I might create some scratch lines where I do post the pen, so I choose to write with this pen unposted, but it is a really nice length to write with it unposted, and a lot of people say the same thing as me. It's very nice to hold, the grip is a very nice length and a very nice diameter, and the threads are very shallow, which means you don't really feel them brushing up against your thumb. I've written with this pen for stints that have lasted over an hour, and I can easily say that this pen is probably one of the most comfortable pens that I've written with to date. It is really nice to use. Let's talk about the nib of this fountain pen. So Montblanc uses its number 6 size nib on the Montblanc 146, and it is a 14 karat gold nib. Now this one here is a fine nib, however when I did get this pen it was a medium nib, but medium nibs on Montblanc pens are a little bit big for me, so I went ahead and swapped it, which they did free of charge. I think I made a video on that. Now, Montblanc nib designs are actually really nice. It is a design that has been copied by a lot of other manufacturers, but this one here is one of the original designs and it is very nice to look at. It's a very nice two-tone nib and they haven't gone over the top in decorating it. Stamped onto the nib is a really nice pattern, and as well as that, the numbers 4810, which is the height of Montblanc Mountain in meters, and as well as that, the Montblanc logo. But strangely absent is a letter telling you the size of the nib. Now the size of the nib grind is something that I'll probably touch on in my writing sample, because usually when you get a fountain pen, a fine in European size is going to be a medium in Japanese size, but for this, a fine in Montblanc land is going to be like a medium in European land. This is seriously one of the widest fine nibs I've ever seen. It is just absolutely giant, and I'm sort of regretting not getting an extra fine on this fountain pen. Now even though that the line is a little bit wide, I gotta say that the grinding on my nib is really nice. Montblanc, to give them credit, actually still do hand grinding on their nibs. You can see in a lot of their how Montblancs are made, you can see that they actually do hand grind all of their nibs. However, these aren't going to be like normal hand ground nibs. For a lot of hand ground nibs I've seen people do, they spend hours on nibs fine-tuning them. However, for Montblanc, they are going to produce them in pretty high numbers, so even though they are hand-ground, they're probably the highest produced in number hand-ground nibs in the world, but I have very few complaints from them. In terms of the grind, it is very, very smooth. There's no complaints from that department, and as well as that, it's very nice to write with for long periods of time, and it's very lenient on what angle you can write with this pen on. The only complaint that I do have is every now and then this pen will hard start, and as well as that, if the ink level is getting pretty low, it does hard start, so which means I just have to refill this pen a little bit before it gets to completely empty, but apart from that, I have very few complaints. Now, feeding this pen is going to be a plastic feed. They used to use ebonite, but obviously they found that injection molding a whole bunch of feeds would have been a lot more easier, so they switched from ebonite to plastic, but that's alright. In terms of the feed is pretty wet. I did say that you're going to blow through your 1.5 mil ink capacity really fast if you are using this pen every day, and I'm not joking. I have to refill this pen maybe once a week, and that is probably a record for a piston-filled fountain pen. Most of those pens will last me about a month, but note, for this pen, a week. Looking at the writing sample for the Montblanc Meisterstück. This is the 146, and I've got to add the 2 little dots over the U, otherwise people freak out. The pen is also known as the Legrand, and the ink that I'm using is Montblanc Permanent Black, so that is the proper document ink. This is ISO 14145-2 certified. It is very good black ink. The paper that I'm using is Rhodia, and this is also a fine nibbed pen. Let's get into a writing sample, and damn, a little bit of that's not very good. And as you can probably see, apart from the little bit of skipping there, which I don't know why it did that, everything else went off pretty well. It was very, very good. There's very little scratch to this nib, and there's very little resistance to it. It is very enjoyable, except every now and then when it does skip. I don't know why it does that. It might be a little bit of misalignment, but it does that very, very rarely. In terms of it being wet, I said it before and I'll say it again, this is a very wet pen, and a lot of the lines that I put down over here are still wet, as you can probably see. This pen puts down a lot of ink for, it's very nice. This pen puts down a lot of ink. In terms of wetness, let's just have a look at it there. As you can see, it's depositing a lot of ink. That is very, very nice. In terms of line width, this is a fine nib, and that's the line that you're going to get put down with no pressure whatsoever, and I'll slowly build up pressure. It's pretty amazing. So no pressure and lots of pressure, which means you're going to get very, very nice contrast. Let me move the camera down. You're going to get very nice contrast, so if you slow down, you're going to get some very, very nice line work. I will say that this is a fine nib, and it is supposed to be a European fine nib, so I'll go ahead and get my... Jesus. This is my Retro 51, and this is also a fine nib, but look at the difference in line width. There is no comparison between this European fine and another European fine. They are in a totally different game. Taking a look at reverse writing, for whatever reason, European pens never do well reverse writing, and this pen is no exception. It's very, very scratchy, and it runs out of ink very quickly. And it's very odd that some $2 Chinese pens are very good at reverse writing, but for this pen, reverse writing is no good. And in terms of quick writing, quick writing, you know, like when you do a signature, I'm pretty sure this pen can easily keep up with fast writing. So conclusion time, and you can probably see by the big smile on my face, I really enjoy using this fountain pen. And I'm not saying good things about this fountain pen because my sister gave it to me, but you know, I sort of probably have to, but all jokes aside, I really do enjoy using this fountain pen. I don't know if it's the best fountain pen in the world, but it's the best one that I have, and I really do enjoy using it. As you can see, I've used this pen for writing stints over an hour, and it is brilliant doing that. And as well as that, I've used it for taking very simple signatures, and it's always nice when people see this pen and they give it a nice little compliment. I'm not all about that, but it is nice when people point out my fountain pen and say, you know, nice pen or whatever. I think it's really nice, and I think other people in the fountain pen community can say the same thing. It is a really enjoyable pen to use, really fun, and I'm just glad that it has some very nice flex to it. But there are a few things that I have to criticize about this pen, like every other pen, because no pen in the world is perfect. And one thing that I do have to criticize Montblanc for is the lack of serviceability of this fountain pen, because if you want to service your Montblanc pen, you will have to send it away to Montblanc, and because Montblanc is Montblanc, and a lot of their clientele is going to be businessmen who can afford $200, $300 to service their pen, but for a lot of us people in the fountain pen community, we might not want to send our pen away every few years to get it cleaned or to get a few scratches removed, or if something breaks, we'd rather not send it away. And that's one of the big issues with this fountain pen, because even if you want to repair it yourself, you really can't, because, for example, you can't actually take the feed out unless you have specialized tools, because there's little slits in the feed where a little tool is supposed to, you know, slit in and twist to take the feed out. So if there's any misalignment in the nib, or the nib gets clogged and you need to take the nib out, you're pretty much on your own there. Or if you want to send it back to Montblanc, spend a few $100s, you're going to have to do that. And as well as that, if you want to take, you know, disassemble the piston mechanism, you're going to have to send it back to Montblanc, or you're going to have to go out and get your own tools, and you know, it's a bit of a grey area there. But apart from that, love my fountain pen. We're going to be using it for a long time to come.